122 fantasy readers sent me their favorite fantasy book, and here are the best 10. I asked readers like you, which is your top 1 favorite book of all time? So I sit down, went through all of those different responses, and here is your crafted top list. In the top 10, we have a story that I was honestly so very surprised that it is here, not because it's a story that I don't believe should be here, but because I thought it was somewhat a hidden gem. So I'm just so happy and thrilled that it's here. It's a standalone that it's very unique in its tone. It's fairly slow paced and it is very character driven. There's a mystery at its core, and there's this kind of story where you are lost to the whimsy of the world. Not that it's magical and that it has a lot of different rules that you cannot understand, but rather that the main character sees the world with such an intensity, with such awe, that you can only render yourself to the knees of this world. And that is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. It's super short. You can definitely read it in one day. However, I do recommend to savor it. People mentioned to me that this book was perfect for them because it made them reflect, made them feel the wonders of this house. And it's a story that at its core is a thriller, because we will be following Piranesi, who is, it seems, the only one that lives in this house that is as big as the world, and he sometimes is visited by this other person, and together they are solving the mysteries. Something one day happens, really low magic, but really fascinating, and definitely one of my favorites again of all time. Position number 9, we have a story that I was also shocked it's here, not because it is not popular or because it's not by an author that millions of readers like, but because I don't believe it's her most popular series. At least that's not the feeling that I've gotten over these last years, although I definitely prefer this series. My entry to fantasy romance, a story that it's definitely on the longer side. It is chunky, it's composed by 6-7 books. It definitely leans more towards the plot. There are different points of view, but mainly you will see how these characters advance, but it's not a deep essay on how characters reflect on what they're going on. I'm talking about Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. This story is so weird because what you see in book 1 and book 2, it's completely different to what you see from book 3 onwards. The characters are different, and what is like we are following a very empowered woman that it's kind of like the chosen one, and she's the ultimate assassin, continues to be a story that talks more about the destiny of the realm, finding their space, their power, also finding love, and all in all finding yourself. It's a story that to me leans more towards the young adult side. It has its part of a spice, but revolves more around those topics of figuring out who you are that I believe are really inspiring, where you are trying to seek your space in world. We won't be seeing any other Sarah J. Maas book in this list, which I am surprised. A Court of Thorns and Roses was mentioned, but it didn't want. It just,
the votes weren't as many.
Position number 8, we have a story that it's currently my whole personality. I'm reading this series slowly but surely. It is massive and it is fantastic. It is a testament to how great classic fantasy is and how you can learn from different people, different magic, different prophecies, different levels of complexity, different arcs in a vast world with a lot of different elements, with the stakes that are incredibly high, with tropes that you know, such as the chosen one, the quest, but also just bringing them down to make it just so epic and so inspiring. And that is The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. This series got mentioned so many times, especially book 4, Shadow Rising, which is very exciting because I'm just starting Shadow Rising and I'm like,
what is gonna happen? I'm really excited to know that.
This is a series that for the longest of times I was like, I won't read it because it just is so long and I'm not sure I will like it. Wheel of Time is a thing of the past. No, it is not. I think you should read it. It is fantastic. It is not old. The themes that are explored are incredibly interesting. It's managed incredibly wise, and there are just so many nuances that I'm sure I'm not even picking up because it's just my first read, but I know this is a favorite for a lot of people, and what I can say is just pick one, start reading it, and I am sure you will love this journey. Also, if you want some company, we're reading one book a month with my Patreon. So if you want to join us in this amazing quest, all the details are below in the description. Top 7, by the Queen of Fantasy, we have a world created by one of the most masterful authors when it comes to creating characters and crafting their insights, how they think, and really making you feel all the feels and suffer. Really suffer. Her stories are characterized for being really slow paced, but also character driven, which might be kind of like a red flag for a lot of us, but it just works because it is really scary how realistic her characters are, how easy you can feel for them, and how you can feel that really stuff is gonna go down as in real life. And it is fantastic how the pieces connect, how the world transcends, how the imagination of this author, it's really bringing us to another whole level, and that is The Realm of the Underlings by Robin Hobb. We got mentioned a lot of times the Lightship Traders trilogy, which I reckon it's the one that probably it's the most accessible. I haven't read the whole world. I've just started with Farseer, read the first one here, and also the first one in the Townie. So I thought Robin Hobb was not for me. I read this one and I was like, no, this is really solid. It is really a good story with characters just you cannot stop reading. It is on the chunky side and it's definitely slow, but the things that you read, they are interesting and they are compelling, and it just, you will feel all the feels. I really recommend. I know that lots of you have already read it, so if this is your case, you want to recommend The Realm of the Underlings to other readers like you, please let me know down below in the comments, and others, help us. In the top 6, we have a series that, although I just read the first books myself, I know this is a classic and that I absolutely need to continue with these. For a lot of people, these books were their initiation to fantasy, to reading, and the journey that these books have from really a chosen one, a school of magic, and how it transcends to something way more darker, way more profound was fascinating. And that is Harry Potter. A lot of people mentioned first book, but also weirdly book 3 and 7. I was not expecting this at all. I knew book 3 was really popular, which is like, I stopped reading in book 2. Lots of people felt that this story was that top for them, not only because of what made them feel, but also because it opened the world of having a soft magic, but also a hard magic system. I have an urban, but also magic, and it's a world that allows you to transition to
fantasy.
Position number 5, and this shocked me, we have a standalone that has conquered the hearts of lots of people because of how masterfully this author blended characters that are unforgettable, plus a very cool magic system, plus these action scenes that really are goosebumps all of the time. It's a story that takes what we know and it just twisted. We will have as main protagonist a mother and a son, and it will be told in a weird formula. At the beginning it's a little bit slow, but then we have such a strong part, and a point 40, 50, you're like, it's the Sword of Kaigen, which in my opinion, it's a masterpiece. It's a standalone, so it's perfect if you want the best of epic fantasy series, but you don't want that commitment right now. And also if you want to cry, if you want to feel all the feels, the drama, the intensity, this is it for you. I've said before that there are scenes here that in my opinion rival Sanderson, and there are moments that just thinking about that, it just makes me really want to cry. This story will follow this family that is the last resort towards an invasion, and something happens and they need to display whatever they have in order to stop what is happening. We will see here elemental magic, in this case eyes, and it is just so good. The dynamics of the family, how every one of them advance and just is crafted, it is incredible. This is a booktube darling, but I was also surprised to got these from Instagram and Reddit, and it is so good. I just hope more people can pick it up because honestly, it's such a yam. Position number 4, we have a heist within an uprising enveloped with the hot magic system that it's to die for, with characters that are nuanced but at the same time are really lovable, but at the same time you want to feel for them, plus a very neat blend between action and character depth. I believe this series, it's perfect if you want to start reading fantasy, especially if you want to discover hard magic systems, because the rules that are played out here are fairly easy to understand, but there's enough complexity to not being super boring or for you to not read all the time the same scene. I'm talking about the Allomancy here, Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. The main magic system in this story, it's so incredible. It consists on these different metals, and if you ingest them, you don't die. You can have special powers. Of course, not a lot of people can have access to these powers, but we will see how these different powers let you fly, let you modulate emotions. The wide variety of magics enveloped here, it's fantastic. And also this story on how we start with a world that has been led by this very dark, dangerous person, and you know, everyone is oppressed, and this oppressor needs to go down. It is fascinating because we start with a band of misfits, of really people that it's like, I want to do a heist, but at the same time I might have other purposes. This story, it is so good. Readers like you liked it, and I can attest to that. Position number 3, we have a series that it is unfinished, and I am not sure if it will ever be finished. And regardless of that, we have it in this list and in a very high position. And that it's a trademark of how good this author is and how impactful the narration and the characters are, which is a testament of the craft of this author and the power that the words pass to us. I vividly remember reading multiple of these books and just don't want it to read. When you have this feeling of your eyes are going in one way and your brain is like, no, please, no, no, please, no, no, please, no. I think that is such a unique moment in your reading life because you start being invested and you know stakes are high. This story blends perfectly action plus politics and characters that are incredibly nuanced. For the first time in my life, when I read this series, I discovered what grey characters are. And yes, of course, we will have the good ones and other that are really, really bad, but the majority of the characters, which are a lot, will be grey, and you will be thrown into the different motivations and maneuverings, and you will be able to understand them, which is very dangerous. And I felt bad, and that is A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. I started this series 14 years ago, and I can still say how impactful this has been, how much drama we have with the books, how much drama we have with the story, and how phrases such as like North Remembers are trademark also of our generation. So I really, really recommend if you want to be thrown into this story that at its core, it's a war for the throne, and we will be following these different houses. Each of them wants them. All of them are incredibly smart, and all of them want to bring something new to the table. Very political and very grim, I want to scream kind of story. Loved it. Position number 2, we have also an unfinished series, but this one will be finished. I know it. It is my favorite series of all time, and it is so because it not only it's a great depiction of mental illnesses, which might sound boring, but it is honestly really refreshing and it is incredibly realistic, but it also blends such epicness, such great characters that you are rooting for from the first page. There's also this world that it's incredibly rich. You have flora, fauna, you have these different types of magic, these different species, these very high stakes, these different almost gods that are fighting, and it is just a story that is very easy to access, but it is so incredibly addictive. It has one of the best endings. Each of these books have amazing endings, and not only that, but the whole story, it's very, very vivid. It's that kind of world in which once that you start, you won't be able to leave, and it is Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. Book 5, it's coming out this year, so I really, really recommend you start reading it. So good, you want to clap, you want to really cheer, you feel tears in your eyes while reading it, and it is just this sense of awe. There's this sense of this is what fantasy it's all about, because characters are nuanced, are beautiful, are savage, and at its core it's a war between different species. But what you see, it's really a character development and how these characters really need to suffer through and push through their situations, which I found incredibly inspiring, and I just love every bit of these books. Position number 1, we have a classic. There were multiple books included here, from the Fellowship of the Ring to the Hobbit to the Silmarillion, and what can I say, all in all, let's blend this in Lord of the Rings, which it's also a story that I have not read myself, but I know I should. These stories are a classic because it not only has an amazing blend between character and plot driven, but because the characters are so incredibly lovable. There are these different species and all of them are bringing something different to our story, but also how we are feeling with it. I recently deep dive a little bit more on how Tolkien wrote stories, and I was fascinated by the fact, and I believe I now see these stories differently, not only as a quest in itself, but also as all of those things that Tolkien wanted to share with us. There's this effort to truly wanting us to be in another place, that it's better to be in awe with whatever we read, to really feel that we have an escape. And I've heard that blending the narration with reading the books are the ultimate experience. These stories are made to make us feel good things, to feel that the good can triumph and that you don't need to be incredibly powerful in order to make a change. It's a story that really inspired a lot of people. Now you might be asking, but well, there's a lot of stories that are not mentioned. Yes, I grant you that. I did get results from Name of the Wind, Empire of the Vampire, Melassin Book of the Fallen, Terry Pratchett with This World, but those stories did not reach enough points to compete with these lines. So if those books are your favorites, also let me know down below in your comments so that other readers like you can pick this one up. If you liked what you've seen so far, consider joining my Patreon, where we have a monthly book club, reading sprints, we have game nights, challenges, and all in all, it's a beautiful community. And thank you so much to my Patreons for supporting me and my passion. You are fantastic. Thank you. This is me doing these shenanigans for the books. Yay! And I'm so happy to see this here because